This is the Hope Not Note podcast,
where we answer your questions and share inspirational stories to fill your soul with hope.
Our mission is to empower hope to those who have been plagued by nope.
I'm Dr. Dylan Caswell.
And I'm Brandy.
And we're here to bring you out of the nope and into hope.
Welcome back to the Hope Not Note podcast. We are so thankful that you are tuning in. Hi, Dill.
Hey, how's it going?
You looked at me, so I was like, what you looking for?
I was just fighting the impulse to yell out booyah or razzle dazzle or anything else that came into my mind.
Oh, Well, thank you for fighting the urge.
Yep.
Did you just look at me and think,
booyah?
I was going to say, Brandy's going to give me a look.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, listeners, for being here. We're glad that we get to be here with you. Today's episode is from a listener named Anthony. His question is, I've been seeing that cold plunges can inhibit muscle growth when used after training sessions. Is that true? And what do you recommend for athletes?
Anthony, that's a great question. And because we're Italian, we're just going to assume that it's Tony.
Oh,
Hey,
Tony.
But I will admit that this is something that I kind of was skeptical at first, kind of went one way, and then have had my own biases challenged with it from digging further into what the research is saying. Because what I've been finding and what we know is that there are people that can make really good headlines, but they don't really know how to interpret the research. So they can create a captivating headline and bring you in and make this claim, but then when you look at the research, you find that they're kind of twisting some words, or they don't even know that they're twisting words because they think that's what the research is showing. So there's kind of this post or this headline going around that cold plunging can inhibit muscle hypertrophy or muscle growth up to 66%. You hear that and you get pretty nervous that if I'm at the gym and I'm trying to gain muscle, and we know that by getting stronger is the best injury prevention that we have, but you put in that work and then this thing, cold plunging, can take 2/3 of that gain away, you almost start to wonder, like, am I working against myself? Yet we see all the other benefits that are being proposed of cold plunging. So as an athlete, what the heck do? You submit a question to Hope Not Nope, and we get to give you the answer. That's what you do. So nice job, Tony. So that headline, let's kind of talk about that headline first, that cold plunging inhibits muscle growth 66% or 2/3. There's no research showing that muscle growth itself is inhibited or declines 66% after cold plunging. What the research shows is that there is a cumulative 66% decrease in satellite cell activity. So these little cells that signal all these other things that set the pathways for protein synthesis and muscle growth after working out, it's in the mTOR pathway. But all these cells in there that signal for this thing to kick off, there is a decline in the activation of those cells while cold plunging. That decrease or that inhibition of 66% of those cells does not equate to muscle growth being declined 66%. Those are two different things. So we cannot take that result from a research study and say 66% decline in cell activation leads to a 66% decline in muscle growth. Because if we're doing the math, which helped me out with 34% would then be 100.
Yeah.
Or 33,
yeah,
33%.
34.
So
yeah.
that 1/3, who knows that if that 1/3 can actually create 100% of the muscle growth that you would have had anyway? Like we don't know that yet because research is still new. And that's the other part of this is like cold plunging and muscle growth or muscle inhibition. It's newer research. The quality of the studies are low. The sample sizes are low. So a lot more needs to be done in this, but it is a catchy headline. Why? Because cold plunging is super popular and a lot of people are doing it. Well, as something becomes popular, there's the polarizing opposite effect of the negativity of that thing that's become popular. And then you get kind of stuck between the pinball machine. And the answer really comes down to that headline. Like we don't know. And there's much other factors to consider. What we do know is that you don't have to cold plunge if you don't like the cold. Like you don't have to do that. There's other recovery methods that you can use. Active recovery is the best. Sleep is the best. Those ones are right up with each other. Sleep being the absolute best because it's free and you should be doing it anyway. Active recovery being the second best type of recovery method, but pretty close up there to sleep. Everything else after that is more of just decreasing soreness, decreasing discomfort. And we tend to look at that as like that's being recovered as not having the soreness. Well, cold plunging does a pretty good job at decreasing muscle soreness or that feeling or the perception of soreness. So the question we pose is that if you do like cold plunging and you're worried about muscle growth being inhibited, but the cold plunge decreases your soreness and then allows you to work out the next day because your soreness has been decreased, is that ability to work out the next day going to outweigh the small inhibition of the satellite cells that we don't really know
Mhm.
what they do, right? So like if you're an athlete that enjoys cold plunging and you're worried about it inhibiting muscle growth, look at it the other way of like when I use this, I'm able to get a better workout in the next day. That's going to lead to better overall gains than worrying about some satellite cell decrease in activation.
Mhm.
So with that, it just comes down to, from the evidence being able to cold plunge the best available protocol that's available right now. And that is you want to be in a water that's about 55 to 59 degrees Fahrenheit. Anything lower than that, you might get more activation of inhibition of those satellite cells. But again, who really knows what the overall effect of that is?
Mhm.
But if you're concerned about that, 55 to 55 or 55 to 59 degrees Fahrenheit, you're looking at a time range of like 5 to 10 minutes. It doesn't have to be that long. It can be 2 minutes, it can be 3 minutes, but anything over 10 minutes might start to get more of a decrease of those satellite cells if you're concerned about that. And then looking at, some will recommend don't cold plunge right after your workout. Wait 1 to 2 hours. Um, I, I'm sorry, I'm not going to wait 1 to 2 hours after a workout to go in a cold plunge. Like, I need to shower. I need to get on with life.
Mhm.
So like I'm not gonna wait that 1 to 2 hours and then go, okay, now I'll go to cold plunge. If you
Mhm.
have the time available and you are okay with that, like awesome, go for it. But that's kind of what's offered as the protocol right now for it. So Tony, don't be afraid that cold plunging is going to be taking away your muscle gains. Also, don't feel like you are obligated to cold plunge after working out. It's
Mhm.
not a thing that's needed for recovery, but it's also not something that we can say right now that it's going to decrease 66% of muscle growth. Like
Mhm.
we actually have to see, does it impact muscle growth with a satellite cell decrease in activation? And the other points just being if it decreases your soreness and it allows you to get a better workout in the next day, that's going to be more beneficial than any of the inhibition that could happen
Mhm.
from the cold plunge.
So I have two follow-up questions.
Mhm.
Number one, within that protocol, is there a recommendation of how often you do this? Like, is it
Mhm.
after every single workout, 7 days a week, or 5 days a week, or 4 days a week, depending on how often you work out?
Mhm.
Should you only do it like twice a week? Is there any sort of recommendation with that?
You nailed the answer in the question. Nice
Really?
job. Yeah, so the recommendation is that you're doing it 2 to 3 times a week and you're saving it for after strenuous workouts.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So you're just like a casual athlete training, but you're not like pushing yourself like crazy. You really don't need to cold plunge.
No.
But if you like it, go for
If
it.
you like it, go for it.
Interesting.
And it's right, it gets complex because this question is specific to muscle hypertrophy and
Hmm.
like, is it impacting my growth? There is some evidence on the other side of this showing that if you're an endurance athlete, that cold plunging may actually help you become a better endurance athlete. But here's what will help you more of
Hmm.
becoming a better endurance athlete, doing the training to become an
Yeah.
endurance athlete. When you cold plunge, it's really like you're conditioning. You're conditioning to discomfort. You're conditioning to a stressor. It's the same thing with a sauna, but on the other end of the spectrum.
Mm.
Cold versus extreme heat. Like how much can my system tolerate of that stressor? It is a stressor, but it's not a metabolic stressor like working out is. So like to achieve the gains that you want as an athlete, whether you're an endurance athlete or whether you want to build muscle or whether you want to build power, like you have to do the training. All this stuff afterwards is just there as something that might help decrease a little bit of soreness, increase a little bit of mental fortitude to allow you to get a better workout in the next time. But do you need it? No. No, there's plenty of athletes that have been extremely successful without cold plunging and without being in a sauna. It just has become super popular by all these people saying all these benefits of it when the research is relatively new, and they'll compare other countries that are like, well, their health is way better because they all use a sauna or they all use a cold plunge. Well, like let's take a step back and also look at like as a system in their country what they have in place, like universal health care, more days off, like less intensive work weeks. Like I think that stuff matters a little bit more
Hmm.
than how long you're in a cold plunge or in a sauna. So like we can't look at these other countries and go, oh, they're healthier because they're in a sauna. Like, hey, that's a very, very small part of it.
Hmm.
Like there is way more to the picture of health than that.
So I think you answered my second question in the midst of all of that, but my second question was, if you're looking at comparing recovery methods of active recovery, meaning like zone two, stretch, like mobility, all the things that active recovery may fall under, versus a cold plunge, how often are you doing active recovery in the week? If you're say you're working out 6 days a week, are you doing active recovery in the midst of all that, or is 1 or 2 days really an active recovery style workout? And then if that's the case, is that just the same thing as, not the same thing, but like cold plunging is the same days of the week time frame as the active recovery would be? Like,
Mhm.
do you understand that question?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah. So the answer to that is I don't have a direct answer because it depends on how many days that athlete is training per week, what point of the season they're in, how much stressors they're taking on.
sure.
And if we have an athlete that's in season, their training volume, strength and conditioning is going to decrease. It's not going to stop, but it's going to decrease because their game activity is going to increase. So in that sense, like they might be doing more active recovery sessions of getting on a bike and pedaling in a zone two for 20 to 30 minutes to get a systemic flush, right? We see all these things in the recovery world of like, oh, it pushes out lactic acid. One, it's not lactic acid, it's lactate. So we got to start with like the principles and the science of it's lactate, not lactic acid. Again, it's a minor thing, but it's a big thing
Yeah.
if you're like in the science
If you're
community.
if you hear lactic acid from, I just want to say this for our listeners. If you're like an Instagram person and you're on Instagram scrolling and you keep hearing these rando trainers, even I'm not gonna say who, but even like the best trainers in the world with the best athletes are using the language lactic acid rather than lactate. If you hear the word lactic acid, that's like a red flag that they don't know what the heck they're talking about. So I'm just popping that in there of like, hey, that's a word to be aware of. Anyways, continue.
Right. And that's not like relatively new science. Like that's been around for a bit that this is not actually acid
Hmm.
that's in the system. People will have confirmation bias because lactate does have a burning type of sensation to it, but it's not the acid
Hmm.
that is doing that. It is the lactate in the system. But anyway, to flush this stuff out of the system, like you need to have blood circulating throughout. And the way that you get blood circulating throughout is by zone two cardio or any type of cardio, like get your heart rate pumping, get your blood pressure going. Like this is going to pump out things systemically to bring stuff to areas. We look at things like compression devices, and again, they're great for subjectively decreasing muscle soreness, but clearing out lactate, like that compressive device, I mean, what does it go up to versus muscle contraction? Like some of these like stockings or like compressive type things, some are at like 30 millimeters of mercury of pressure, where other ones can get up to like 200. You look at a muscle contraction, it's nearly double or triple of that.
Mm.
So like if you really are having soreness and you want to flush out lactate, um, zone two cardio is the best for that, right? So like if you're a basketball player, your zone two cardio in season is probably not going to be more treadmill work.
Hmm.
Like you have enough impact from the game and the schedule and the travel schedule, but you can get on the bike and
Hmm.
pedal around and then get off and do some dynamic mobility
Or like a light swim.
or light swim.
Hmm.
Yeah, but swimming, it's tough. Swallowing water.
But if you're
But
if
if
you
you're a
like
good
swimming,
swimmer,
yeah, if
then
like
like
swimming's
if
relaxing
swimming's
for you,
relaxing for you,
yeah.
then
Like I
absolutely.
think of like Tia Claire Toomey, like the
Yeah.
CrossFit athlete, High Rocks athlete, like that is her recovery, is
Yeah.
like going for a swim, but she's also been swimming since she was like 5 years old.
Right.
So it's different. But
Yeah.
like not if you're like a pro athlete that's never really swam before.
Right. Yep,
But just
absolutely.
saying, like, if you're not a bike person, there are other
There are
options
other
too.
options. Yeah. Yeah. And to answer the question you're asking too, it's, if it's preseason where training camp is super intense, like active recovery is going to be built in every day with
Mhm.
those workouts, right? Like we're going to do sprints on the field, but then after those sprints, we're going to walk a lap
Mhm.
to like get the active recovery in there. But also like, sorry, but in training camp, the goal is not to be fully recovered
Right.
and be 100% the next day.
Yeah.
The goal of training camp is to build capacity to get ready for the rest of the season. And that's hard to do.
Yeah.
But what happens after training camp? You get a little bit of downtime in which that whole week is recovery or active recovery to then start the season. Feel good. It's like a taper. It doesn't stop, but it decreases 30 to 50%
Hmm.
of the volume. And then an athlete that's like, let's say they're working out 5 days a week, right? Well, what intensity are they working out at, and do they need an active recovery after it? Like
Hmm.
if they're working out for general health and they're staying, below 75% of their one rep maxes, and they're not really straining, then you don't need much of an active recovery.
Hmm.
Like you're probably getting that just from like walking around your house or workplace. Like you're probably getting that through the day without realizing that that's your zone two recovery. And then that allows you to get back into the gym. The higher intensities you work at, the more that you need it built in.
Hmm. Awesome.
Yeah. And then the only other thing, I know the topic was more on like muscle growth, and hopefully Tony feels better about that answer, which again is like, if you enjoy doing it, do it 2 to 3 times a week, 5 to 10 minutes, 55 to 55, 59 degrees Fahrenheit. Um, if it helps you feel less sore and you get better workouts in the next day, keep doing it. If you haven't been cold plunging and you're like, oh man, should I be doing it? Do I need to be doing it? You don't need to be doing it.
Hmm.
Active recovery. And then if you need or want to decrease muscle soreness, and you want to go cold plunge, sure, go for it. You can also foam roll. Like
Hmm.
foam roll is not changing tissue properties, but it can decrease the perception of muscle soreness. Like there's
Hmm.
other things out there that you can use. The last thing I'll say is like, cold plunges are used. We talked a little bit about endurance, a little bit about mental fortitude, about just doing hard things that suck.
Hmm.
Like there is some benefits to that psychologically. And just kind of rounding it out, there's also like when we look at cold plunging and like ice and stuff like this, yes, Wim Hof and all that, but like if you're in the summer and you're down in the south and you're doing double sessions in football, like why are ice baths used? Well, they're used to decrease core temperature.
Yeah.
Because like that's a lot of heat and a lot of
Hmm.
equipment. If you don't decrease core temperature, you're gonna have heat exhaustion, you're gonna have heat stroke, you're gonna have emergencies on your hand. So
Hmm.
if it's a really hot day and the humidity is up and you're training hard and you need to decrease your core temperature in order to get another session in later on, that is an appropriate time to go into the cold plunge. I don't care about what little inhibition of muscle growth may or may not happen at that point. I care that you do not go into heat exhaustion
Yeah.
or a heat stroke. So like no, like it's been used in the South for a while, but it's also a different environment
Hmm.
that's there. So just want to put that out there
Yeah.
as well that like in really hot temperatures to bring down your core temperature, it is worthwhile to do
Hmm.
that.
Yeah. And maybe Tony lives in Texas.
Maybe he lives in
Texas
Texas,
Tony.
Tony.
Awesome. Well, I know for me personally, I am not going to be cold plunging anytime soon. It does not appeal to me. I don't really care for it. Maybe if it was like super, super, super hot here, which like in upstate New York, that's like 80 degrees basically because it's
Right.
always chilly. I would, if we were near a lake, I would jump in a lake,
Oof.
but I would not invest I'm saying in the middle of the summer if it's
Oh,
hot. And like we're
gotcha.
like that's the cold temperature I'm gonna go to is like a lake
I
temperature.
thought you meant cold plunging in a lake, and I was like, oh, I've been there, done that. You don't want that.
No, in the
You
middle
much
of
rather be in a
winter.
plunge without waves coming and smacking you. Yeah,
No, I'm just saying like I'm not gonna invest in a cold plunge.
yeah.
End of sentence. But that's like that's just my preference. However, to go into my hope story, we've been sprinting to say the least the past few months and it's been awesome and we've released a bunch of new free resources and a new online course and like all these different things that we're so excited to give and to serve you with really. but it's been a sprint. And
Mhm.
so at Christmas time, I got Dylan tickets to a concert that was actually a couple weeks ago, which was nice because I feel like with the sprint we needed the little breather.
Yeah.
So we just did like a one night overnight, a few hours away, got to go to a concert, we got a hotel. And let me tell you, it was very recharging for our spirits. But we got to do a little cold plunge, but it wasn't a cold plunge.
Yeah.
It was the hotel had a hot tub and a pool. And so it was really fun to like be in the hot tub and get super like hot and sweaty and then go and jump in the pool. So like I like that kind of experience once in a blue moon if we're at a hotel. But again, I'm not gonna go buy cold plunge. But all that to say, the trip is my hope story because it was very recharging and refueling for our spirit, which we talk about is like the most important thing. And we got to see Forrest Frank in concert, who's this awesome new, I like to call him like California Christian music, like really about Jesus, but he's got those like California beach vibes. And I mean, I've been listening to him for years. I listened to him when he was in his first band and now like his current band that's more faith-based. Um, was awesome. We had like the best pizza in our life in the middle of Pennsylvania, which Dylan did not want to say because it was in Pennsylvania and it wasn't like a New York pizza, but it was a good piece of pizza or pie. Oh,
It was a great pizza.
it was so
I'll put it tied for first, only based off of being a Central New Yorker
good.
and being surrounded by great pizza that I just refuse to say the best pizza I've had in my life was not in Italy, not in New York City, not in Boston, not in Syracuse, but in a random small town in
In
Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania. It was a good pizza though.
But I knew it was going to be good because when we called in the order, the lady that picked up the phone had a thick Italian accent
Hmm.
and like barely could speak any English. Like I was like, this is going to be a good pizza, and it over delivered
Yeah.
my
And
expectations.
if you're a long-term listener, you know that we love pizza. We had this happen before last summer where we were in another random small town. This one was in New York, and it
Yeah,
was again random, but like one of the best like pieces of pizza that we ever had.
yeah.
And the guy had an Italian accent.
Shout out Julio's
Yeah. From
if
this
that's the
past
name from the
weekend.
past weekend.
Yeah.
And we weren't hangry when we had this one, so I think it's a very
Yes.
um, unbiased take
Yeah.
on this pizza. It was phenomenal.
So what's your hope story? Is it just the pizza?
Well, I want to add in the pizza and then also, um, it is funny because like us being in human performance, we do really care about, taking care of ourselves.
Hmm.
And with that, a lot of people would think that like our diet is clean 100% of the time, that like we do not have cookies, we do not have ice cream, like we don't have those snacks. We are strong believers in 80/20. 80% of the time, we're dialing it in, we're doing well.
Yeah.
But that 20% of the time when it comes along, we lean into that 20%.
Yes, we do.
And this hotel had like one of like I'd say top five chocolate chip cookie
Hmm.
that was just like free. Like Brandy wanted to keep going to the front desk to save the
I
cookies
was
to bring them back.
I
Like
was
that's
so
how good this
upset.
cookie was.
Listen. I was so upset because they didn't tell us that there was a time limit on these cookies.
Hmm.
They just said, "Oh, free cookies." So when we checked in, the cookies were there. So I assumed the next morning the cookies would also be there so that I could take a road cookie with us as we left. And they said, "Oh no, we only cook them after 2 o'clock." And I'm like, I want a cookie now and it's 11 o'clock, please. But they didn't have, I literally asked, I was like, do you have any in the back? And she said, no. I was so upset. I wanted more cookies. I think we had like two or three each.
Yeah,
I could have had 12.
they were phenomenal.
They were really good.
So my hope story is kind of I had kind of four in my brain. I'm just gonna go to one. From that trip when we went in to get pizza, they were Italian speaking, and I was like, hey, let's try it out. Like let's try to speak some Italian and see. And the guy was just not having it, which was kind of funny. But I would say it was his grandson, or
Yeah.
I'm assuming,
Yeah.
guessing that it was his grandson. But he's just at the table, just eating Jello. And Brandy's kind of walking around looking at like the slices and just the other food that they have to offer. And it was so sweet because this kid's just eating his Jello and he just looks up at Brandy and makes eye contact with her and he just goes, "Hi." To which Brandy was like, "Oh, hi, how's your Jello?" He's like, "Good." And went back to eating his Jello. And then a few days ago, I think we were at a coffee shop And this little girl came in and she got these like 2 little cups of something, hopefully not espresso, that'd be wild. But
But
she
it
was,
wasn't an
but it
espresso
was an
cup.
espresso
Yeah.
cup. And she's like walking out and she's just like staring at us. And I'm like, I don't know if she like wants to fight us or like what is it? She's just staring at us. So like we're making eye contact. And then she initiated and she just goes, hello. And it was just so sweet, but it made me realize these 2 kids in 2 different areas of the country have learned that if you make eye contact with another human being, that the first thing that you should do is say hi or hello.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, why don't we do that throughout our lifetime?
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you make eye contact with someone, give them a head nod at least, if not say hi or hello.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to enter into a whole conversation. It's just showing like, I acknowledge that you're right here and we are staring at each other awkwardly.
Mm-hmm.
So I should say hi
Yeah.
or hello. So that's the challenge for this week. Hope story to a challenge is to just say hello to someone. If you're cold plunging and someone comes in the room and you're awkwardly staring at each other, just say hi. Or you're opening a door for someone, eye contact, hello.
Mm-hmm.
Like again, it doesn't have to enter into a full conversation. It's just acknowledging that you exist. And gosh, people need that.
Yeah.
And like we got it from 2 just beautiful toddlers.
Yeah,
Little kids just know like they haven't been their spirit hasn't been deconstructed from the world.
Yeah, they
They need to
haven't
be
been like
reconstructed.
rejected yet, which
And
is
it's
awesome.
like that. But it's like as we get older, we just have to kind of deconstruct what the world has taught us and reconstruct what our creator has taught us.
Mm-hmm.
And that is to follow one of the commandments of loving each other. And one way you do that is just by acknowledging another human being by saying hello
Mm-hmm.
or waving or hi or head nod.
Mm-hmm.
It's simple.
I would argue that this is just like my brother and me coming out, but my brother is like the head nod is so disrespectful. Like just say hi. Don't give me a
Yeah.
head nod. Who do you think you are? Give me a head nod. That's what my brother would say.
Yeah.
So I would argue like the head if you're the type of person that is like, I'm mediocre. I don't really want to be the best, then you can do the head nod. But I think most of the people that listen to our thing want to be great.
Yeah.
And so being great is taking the extra step of not just the head nod, but saying hello.
I would agree.
So we're saying hello to you, and we're also saying goodbye. I hope you enjoyed this episode.
Great wrap up. Have a great week, and remember, every day is not just a day to be hopeful, but an opportunity to become hope.
The Hope Not Know podcast is meant for educational, informational, and personal development purposes only and does not constitute any health or medical advice. If you're looking for specific advice, connect with us to work with a Hope coach. The Hope Not Know podcast shall not be liable or responsible for any loss or damage allegedly arising from any information or suggestions in this podcast.